What can I do? There's a baby in the house, nibbling at my mother and pulling on her blouse. I wanted a brother, but how was I to know? I'd have to share my mother, now I wish he'd go. He sits upon her lap and gets bounced upon her knee, but he'll never have a baby as nice as me. They'll never have a baby as nice as me. What can I do? There's a baby inside. He's in our house and he even tried to grab my blanket and to grab my clothes. Makes a lot of noise, and I suppose he's gonna...
That could be a scary song.
So many of these songs have backstories, have stories behind them. On that one particular, I had a dear, dear friend who, when we were growing up, used to work as a babysitter, as a house nanny. And she told me the story back in, probably the late 70s. She took care of this family's child, and the family had a new baby. And she came to the door with a gift to meet the new baby. And the little boy met her at the door and said, "Oh, are you here to see the new baby?" And my friend said, "Yes." She said, "Well, come on in." He said, "Yeah, it's a really nice baby." And my friend said, "Oh, great, yeah." And then the little boy said, "Yeah, we love the new baby, don't we?" And my friend said, yeah, she was getting worried. And finally the little boy turned to her and said, "But you know what? They'll never have a baby as nice as me." And she told me that story, and it stuck inside of me for probably 20 years. Yeah. And then when we had kids, we had twins, I remembered that, and the song came from that experience, that story.
Do you ever sing songs in your normal voice? People can hear your voice is very, very active, but sometimes real low.
And sometimes up real high.
But some of the humor comes from the voice. I wonder if the perception of the irony and all the rest of the stuff is as quick when you sing in a normal voice as if you're singing a normal song.
Yeah, well, All I Want Is You from Juno was certainly my voice. 150 songs. There's many of them that are in my own voice. But I think that's probably. I've never had a great voice, and I've never been a great guitar player. So I've had the theatrical approach, and especially working with kids, that's something that really varies the concerts that I give. Yeah. And when I'm up on stage, it's just me and the guitar. There's not a backup band. There's not 5 other musicians that I'm interacting with. So I guess I've learned to sort of compensate by creating what I call on the albums the Barry Louis Polisar self-aggrandizement choir. Never cook your sister in a frying pan. It's all those voices together.
I'm going to play this next cut simply for my own satisfaction because I have to ask you one question when we hear this.
This is like Stump the Professor. You know?
What in the world was going on when you recorded this?
This really is a trip down memory lane for me. My son Evan, who, by the way, is currently 21 years old, finishing his last semester of college, has actually been in the studio working on his own album of his own original songs. But when he was about 3 months old, he developed this habit of sitting in a little baby chair. Maybe he was 6 months old. I'm not exactly sure how old he was, but he was still very, very young. And he would kind of go, he'd just make that noise.
Yeah, right.
And so one day, as he was doing that, I went up to him, and as he was going, and his mouth just went into this biggest grin, like he had discovered this instrument. And so I actually recorded him when he was about 3 or 4 months old, and I jokingly played Turkeys in the Straw.
Yeah.
And then when I made an album of songs about my kids, I looped that in with me doing it, and I called it Turkeys in the Straw. So.
One other self-indulgence, but this is absolute insanity, and I wonder what the inspiration of this. Listen to the interior rhymes of this, folks. Number 7, Ben. It's called My Brother Thinks He's a Banana. And some of the rhymes, I was sort of listening with half my brain, and I heard some of the rhymes, and all of a sudden I found myself hurting myself laughing, pushing myself away from the computer, because I think this brother is terrific. My brother thinks he's a banana.
My brother thinks he's a banana. My mother won't ever admit it. He sleeps curled up in the fruit bowl. Oh, Grandma tries to forbid it. She says it isn't normal for him to be that way. And although he has turned yellow, he seems to be okay.
Although he's turned yellow, he seems to be okay.
I
That's the line that did it.
I think the next line was, he really is a scholar. He's read all the books by Bellow, but still he likes to clown around and cut up in the Jello. I just love the idea of taking Saul Bellow, noted, novelist and man of letters, and rhyming him with Jello.
It's better your brother didn't think he was an orange.
That's true. It would have been very hard. Well, it's funny. There's a new project that's been in the works for a couple years, but it's probably going to be coming out sometime this year. A former fan out in California has a rock and roll group called the Radioactive Chicken Heads, and they've recorded 2 or 3 of my songs over the years. And he approached me a couple years back about doing a tribute album. He would like to do an album of my songs, get a number of other bands together, and he's putting this album together. And at last count, there's about 45 songs, and it's probably going to be a double album of songs of mine that have now been recorded by new people. And there's a great Sephardic version of that song by this guy who has a band in New York, and he's covered that banana song so well.
I knew this would happen. We've run out of time before we can even talk about your books, some of which are serious, but
okay.
You've got a wonderfully interactive website. Give our folks the address of it.
Well, it's my name, BarryLouisPolisar.com. But kids, of course, can't remember BarryLouisPolisar.com, so I actually have BarryLou.com, takes you to the same place.
BarryLou.com, that's BARRY.
LOU, yeah.
It's been delightful having you
Pleasure.
again, and we're going to go out with your hit song, which capped your career so far, and that's the song from Juno again.
Okay.
Written and performed in the movie by Barry Louis Polisar.
Pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on Primetime Radio. We invite you to call our toll-free number with comments on our programs. That number is 800-424-9343. Primetime Radio is a production of AARP. Our producer is Janelle Haskell, associate producer Angel Todd. Our engineer is Ben Pizzuto. I'm Mike Cuthbert in Washington.